Hi, Paul Slackett's Good News Planet. We're going to talk about a group here, and it's even larger than themselves. And they're involved with everything ALS. Indu, I think, Navar, is that right? Started the organization, and she's out in San Francisco. We have Austen, Eadie-Friedman. He's in upstate Connecticut, and we have Deb Fabricatore, who is in Florida.
Yes.
And I'm just in New York. So the thing here is we're going to talk about ALS. Is ALS the one that at one point somebody took water and they poured it over their heads?
Yes, the ice bucket challenge.
The ice bucket challenge. So we have that on. We've done some ALS stories. Well, Indu, why did you start your group?
So I'm a tech entrepreneur here in the Bay Area. And, life had it that it was really charming, and everything my husband and I touched or worked on was very successful in the technology world. But, he started having his symptoms of neurological symptoms very early. We caught it very early, but, we went to the doctors and they said, well, it could be fatal, or it could be something very simple. We don't know, come back after 8 months. And that was our first shock that, we could have something that's really that bad and there's nothing we do. And anyway, so it has it that, it was like, oh, not ALS to, yes, it's ALS. Anyway, it took us 2 years to get diagnosed with a yo-yo of what it could be. And after that, the exhaustion of getting diagnosis. And after that, going through the journey, he passed away in 2019, August 13th. And, he is one of the very early at Amazon. He invented Amazon Cloud. It was, many other innovations. And one of the things we would talk about is how lack of innovation this disease has. Even though it's really hard to diagnose and get treatments, but really we've not really progressed in terms of bringing in innovation, technology innovation to the disease to do early diagnosis so we can actually treat the disease. So with that in mind, I started this organization, really cherry-picked few people to start this with, and most of us never met each other because it was COVID times. We all met online, and we started this organization, and we're very pleased with the progress we're making because our goal and our mission is to bring in digital solutions, technology innovations to do early diagnosis and also for treating for the diseases, for this disease.
I'm so sorry to hear about your loss from this, and I applaud you for taking the loss and making it into a opportunity for others to learn more about it. And I think I know I agree with you because I sort of think we have these things called apps now, and all kinds of possibilities. Actually, I was 72 when I started at CBS. The president of technology for CBS said to me, one day someone's going to be able to look at an operation, doctors all around the world at the same time. And in essence, you would think that, and that's 72. So what am I talking? 50 years ago next year. So are you saying with ALS, we haven't seen that progress?
No, we have not.
That's bad news.
We still diagnose with very, very old school, because we can't really find anything in imaging or blood or CSF. And, CSF means spinal fluid. So we do something called EMG, and that is the very gruesome, putting needles in every muscle. And, and you really can't do early, because early you see some electrical signals, but you really are not enough to say it's ALS. So really, we diagnose it when about 80% of the motor neurons are dead. So that is, thinking about it as stage 4 cancer. Think about it as we can only detect at stage 4, and then we're trying to get treatments for stage 4 cancer. That would be impossible task, right? So our goal is really to come up with ways to diagnose early and also get the clinical trial. So the other side of this problem is that when people have clinical trials, there's really no good ways to measure how people are doing. It's really done in a very old school pen and paper. They ask you questions about, how are you walking now, or how are you breathing now, or how are you, moving your hands. So it's a very self-reported way. So what we are building is really continuous monitoring of these functions. So we should be able to see minute, small changes as to in which direction it's changing.
I just want to.
Yeah, and if I could
please
just
go ahead, Austen. Yeah, go on.
If I could just add to what Indu just shared, I think it's really important for folks to understand that ALS currently is a diagnosis of exclusion. So Indu explained, the EMG process and how that is one of the tests that definitively points toward ALS. But to even get to that point, pretty much everything else has to be ruled out. And so it is an incredibly arduous, scary, confusing, frustrating process for patients and their families. And, I have the dubious distinction of being a person living with ALS. I was diagnosed at the age of 36. I am now 38. And it really has been quite a journey. But part of what keeps me going and keeps me motivated is being involved in an organization like EverythingALS. I think the progress that we're making from a technological standpoint has really been remarkable. And I think anything we can do to further the science and the understanding and ultimately the patient care is really important to me as somebody suffering with ALS, but also important to me because I've spent the vast majority of my career working in the biotech and pharmaceutical industries. So that being said, that's what sort of leads me to working with Indu and team and really excites me in the work that we're doing and in the progress that we've made and will continue to make.
How did, if you care to share, how did it begin, this ALS for you, and what did you do, and how did we get to 2 years later?
Yeah, so not dissimilar to Indu's husband. It began almost like a blip on the radar. For me, I had sort of started this health journey. I stopped drinking. I started exercising. I had recently actually taken a new job and moved from New York to Boston. And I was out running one day, and I felt this very strange weakness in my left knee. And I didn't think anything of it. And I actually ignored it for about 4 or 5 months. But it continued to progress. Saw my physician. I was referred to a physical therapist because they thought that, it was something, within my joints. Saw that physical therapist about 4 or 5 times. And then he, after the 5th session, told me that he definitely couldn't do anything, that I was actually getting worse. And I knew that as well. I started to suffer from foot drop and was falling inexplicably. And that sort of started the process to get me in to see a number of other doctors, and then finally a neurologist who ultimately ended up giving me that EMG. And she was so alarmed by the results that she saw that she actually sent me to the emergency room. And I was diagnosed in the emergency room, like I said, right before my 36th birthday. And, since then, I continued to work for a good 2 years post-diagnosis. I recently stopped working and am living every day. I'm essentially a quadriplegic at this point in time. I rely on a power wheelchair and the assistance of my spouse to do even the most basic things. I can't feed myself. I'm lucky that I can still speak, but using the bathroom, transferring, showering, getting dressed, that's all done with pretty significant assistance, and that's pretty common within the mid and late stages of most ALS patients.
What does ALS stand for?
Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease.
So do you see some hope here, some optimism? Do you see anything, any medications, any kind of thing happening?
Well, I certainly would like to get Deb and Indu's
Sure.
perspectives on this as well. I personally do see hope as we move forward. I think the reality of the situation, Paul, though, is that I'm not sure I'll see it in my lifetime, and I'm honestly okay with that, but because I've made peace with my lot in life to a certain degree. But that's why I think the work that we're doing with ALS and other organizations is so critical, because I think we're really on the precipice of something big. But it's really about finding the will, finding the momentum, finding the energy around curing this disease. And I think we can get there eventually.
Yeah, I would like to jump in there, Paul. I lost my younger brother to ALS in 2014. And from my perspective, it's not my brother's ALS anymore. And I just think that there is hope now. And it reminds me, Austen and I have talked about this, it reminds me way back in the day during the AIDS epidemic, where it was 100% fatal disease and there was no hope. And I ended up being a caregiver for a dear friend of mine because people were scared and everybody kind of left him. And honestly, had he lived maybe another 11, 12 months, he'd be alive today, because it was in that time that they discovered that cocktail of drugs that now makes the virus undetectable. And when Austen used the word precipice, I think that's where we're at now. I don't know when it's coming, but I don't believe it's my brother's ALS anymore. And I do believe that, and there's more people working together. Our group is extremely collaborative. Indu, your thoughts?
Yes, that's why we're doing what we're doing. And absolutely, I think the timing is right. Look at everything we've evolved in the last few years in terms of bringing in the technology to detect even the minute things. And what we need to do is, in ALS, there is a lot of drugs and trials that's coming in, but what we don't have is easy way or a continuous way of monitoring this disease to figure out what are the changes that's happening, so the FDA can actually see it, that there is actually changes. So the proving of whether this drug works or not is the underlying foundational problem that we have in this disease. So we're very optimistic that, with everything we've done in the last 12 months, we started the research on just observing speech for ALS patients to see if we can actually detect minute changes in the progression tracking. And in 12 months, we actually see the signal. We've done 3 publications. We're talking to FDA about how to make this as an FDA-approved way of doing early detection and also progression tracking during the clinical trials. So there is a lot we can bring to the table here in a very short amount of time.
Well, let me ask you, this is a worldwide disease, right? This is not an American only disease. There's no, in addition to you guys, and once again, I thank you for doing what you're doing. There's no, like I just say these, American Cancer Society probably has, lots and lots and lots of relationships, and they're pulling in this cancer information, that information, that information. There's no big guy, big girl out there that's overseeing this.
It was so shocking when we started going through it. Well, there is nothing. This is how it's called the orphan disease, because by the time very similar to what Austen explained, it takes about 2 years to go through this grueling process of diagnosis. And then once you have that, the disease itself consumes the family and the person. And, after they lose someone, they just walk away from this disease. And it's a revolving door because it's such a short amount of time. It's like, new people coming in. And really what we decided was, we've gone through this and we've accumulated so much knowledge and information, and we want to stay in it. And it's hard. Every day is hard. We lose people that we get close to. We actually, there's a lot of PTSD. We talk about it in our group, but we are here to commit to seeing the end of this, because we believe that what the knowledge that we've accumulated is what is needed to really solve this disease. And
but I just want to interject into, I'm sorry, I want to really point to why it's so critical to conduct something like this speech study that we're overseeing, and finding specific discrete digital biomarkers within ALS, because I think it's important for people who don't understand or are not familiar with this disease to understand that in order to assess a drug's effectiveness, many diseases, especially in the cancer space, have made a tremendous amount of progress in pinpointing some of those symptomatic biomarkers, which can determine whether or not the therapeutic is having an effect on the disease. We don't have anything to point to that within the ALS space. And so until we have those specific discrete biomarkers, we're relying solely on subjectivity. There's no objective measure to determine whether or not somebody is progressing quickly or progressing slowly. So that's really where we've invested our time and energy and our focus. And we truly believe that once we unlock some of those discrete biomarkers, we're going to accelerate progress within this space.
Let me ask you another question here, because it seems, I don't know, the government, our government, America, gives a lot of money away, our money away, to all kinds of things. There's opportunity at all with getting, supported, presenting the study that you say you're involved with right now. I guess it does sometimes in life come to funding, and recognition and more people knowing about it, so on and so forth. Are there opportunities for the government, in addition to, I will say, people donate to the organization? You're probably a nonprofit where you can go over all that kind of stuff with us. But I'm just wondering, is there any potential of finding money with governmental, outreach?
So we are, with what Austen said, with speech is one behavioral data that we're collecting. Because we're seeing the signal, we're putting a package together to go apply for NIH grant in February. So yes, it takes effort to say, so we need to do a lot of the groundwork to do it. Yeah, definitely, because the awareness is not there, the funding doesn't get allocated to ALS, and there is a lot more advocacy that needs to get done, that this is treatable disease, this is definitely curable disease, but we need to put more money into it to actually make it happen.
And I mean, I think another aspect of this, and we've talked a lot about this as a group within Everything ALS, but I think, you know, there's still a significant amount of work that needs to be done. A lot of the data that we've uncovered in, you know, the years that we've spent researching this disease is siloed and is not freely shared across different platforms and different organizations. And that's part of the problem too, because every time you start a brand new clinical study, or there's a compound that seems like it's going to be promising, it's almost like we have to start from scratch. So that's something that I think, you know, the companies, government, the individuals can really spend a lot of time and effort to try to break down those silos and share that data. I know that there are other organizations that are interested. I think it's RareX in particular. We're here to talk about Everything ALS, but RareX is another organization that's looking to create a federated data platform that will help to share some of those learnings that have come to be through failed trials. And so, you know, that's part of you know, the effort that we really need to spearhead and champion as well as an organization and as collective individuals.
And also, Paul, I just wanted to say, with the speech study, kind of piggybacking on what Austen just said, you know, typically in the ALS space, studies were done with a very small amount of participants. And in our study, I don't think it's really ever been done in the ALS space before, and this is the good news. We're close to having 1,000 participants, and people, you know, the good news is people are stepping up, people who have a connection to ALS, people who don't, and, you know, we're still taking participants. So we need, you know, 500 people diagnosed with ALS and 500 people as controls who, you know, are healthy individuals who want to spend 10 minutes a week just recording into their computer. But people are stepping up from all over the country, all ages, you know, and that really is a good news. And we are sharing the data, and Indu can give more of this information to, we're working with Mass General Harvard, UT Austin, Guglielfonia, MIT, just to name a few. So, you know, we are really kind of changing the dynamic in that way. You know, we started out as this little mouse that roared, and we're becoming, you know, the lion almost.
Well, that's wonderful. Indu, maybe you can tell us how people can get involved with you, how people can volunteer for the study, those with, those without, as Deb just said. And maybe we can make this part one, and then maybe let's regroup 3 or 4 months from now. We can talk again and update and let us know how you're doing. We'll think also, we do a lot of pharma, I'll tell you that, interviews. So why don't you give us a synopsis here, and
did you want to give them my email that might go to more directly, or?
Yeah. So what we do is citizen science. So we citizens, patient community, are coming together, and we are doing this research project, and we do all of the data platform. Just like Austen said, this is an open data platform, and we collect the data, we do the research, and then once we have that, we distribute it to many researchers. So think about it as opposed to the time where studies have been done with 25 or 50 people over 2 to 3 years. We have actually collected over 700 people in less than 12 months, and this is distributed across hundreds of different researchers all at the same time. So this is how we're making it 1000x faster, because a lot of the things that's happening in ALS is process locking. Like process is broken. The data gets locked, it doesn't get shared with anybody else. So we are creating this open platform where this will be shared with many different entities. That is neurologists, AI, computer science, AI community, to pharmaceutical companies and many other places. And the data is also shared with patients and participants. they can actually download all the data that they shared and also look at some of the key metrics as well in their progression. So how can they be involved
Right.
with this?
I'm going to run out of time on my Zoom rule here.
Yeah. So anybody with ALS or without ALS can get involved. And anybody who is blood relative or non-blood relative or a friend or just want to volunteer. So they go into everythingals.org/research and they can read all about it. We have the speech project, and we also have a project with Microsoft Bing. And you can also directly send email to deb@everythingals.org or info@everythingals.org. So please go into everythingals.org and either send us an email or go into research and give us, contact us, and we will actually enroll you in the study if you're eligible. And anybody
or answer any questions. And the eligibility is be over 18 and have a United States address.
Okay. Well, you're three heroes for me, helping others. It's a beautiful, beautiful outreach of your soul and your caring and love for others. And I wish, Austen, I wish speedy recovery. And Indu and Deb, thank you for, sharing, very personal scenarios and forward motion. That's all we can do. And that's what you are doing. So I congratulate you all. And we're honored to get a chance to speak with you all.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for what you're doing.
Okay. Happy holiday season to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.